So last week was what we're doing up here, and this week is what we're doing out there. So I hope this can be helpful. And the thing I want to repeat, as I've said before, is that um, you're not going to learn how to do this tonight. This is giving you kind of an overview and giving you a starting point that you can then use to progress and improve from there. But this is a leaping off point. But before we begin, I want to start with a word of prayer. Our holy and righteous Father, we're thankful for all that you do for us. You're a great and awesome God. You created all things, you created us, and we're thankful that you have redeemed us from our corruption, be called your sons, do your work. We pray that we will do that to the best of our ability. Thank you for Jesus and his perfect sacrifice and example for us, and help us to be more like him, though we can never meet his example. We strive to be like him in our lives. We pray that you will aid us and you will help us grow through your Spirit. And we thank you for all that you've done. Pray that you'll be with us this evening in our class and be with us as we're trying to improve in our singing and as we want to improve in all things and do all things well for your glory. And we pray all of this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So good. We got our slides up. We'll be using them a bit tonight. But before we get into part singing, I realized there were a few things that I forgot to mention last week, and so I just want to touch on that real quick here at the beginning. And that's on the topic of choosing a song service. So we talked a lot about the mechanics and what you're doing with your arm and pitching and all of that. But I also want to talk a little bit about what songs do you choose and how do you go about doing that? Is there a good way to do that? Is there a less good way to do that? And I would suggest that there is a good way to do that. Because we have to remember that not only are we directing our emotions and directing the technical aspect of the singing, but we're also directing and leading our thoughts as we worship. We're singing with our minds as well as our spirits. And so one thing I think that can be very helpful in this is developing a theme that connects the different songs that you choose together, one thought that kind of flows through the whole service. This can be related to the sermon, that's often useful, or it can be complementary. I think it's easy to kind of fall into, you ask the preacher what they're preaching on, and then you look in the index and you pick all the songs under that heading, and that's fine. But then you can also do things that might complement it. Maybe something that the sermon makes you think of that then you can kind of do and guide our thoughts that way. But so in some way, having a cohesive thought that is driving what we're singing about. And choosing a variety of songs. We've talked about different keys and different time signatures and simple patterns and compound patterns. And choosing a variety of that can help things stay interesting. If you lead every song in the key of C in 4/4 time, that can get a little dull. But if you do different keys, different time signatures, that can help freshen things up. And that just helps keep everyone engaged, and that's what we're wanting. And just remembering that we're leading not only our emotions and our mechanics, but we're leading our thoughts, and that's a big responsibility that we have as leaders. So that was just a quick thing that I wanted to touch on. So now we're going to get in. Yes, Cynthia. Yeah, and I agree to an extent. I think what is an invitation song might be up for a bit of interpretation, but I think in some way you should have a reason for why you are singing it at that. Okay, so now getting into our part singing practice. To begin, I just want to do a bit of maybe some review of what we've done so far. So we're just going to do some rhythm practice. So we have different time signatures, 2-2, 3-4, 4-4, 4-8, whatever. I just want to do a little bit of that just to get us thinking and moving a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to practice beating our hand, and you can join in with that if you'd like to. And we're going to do that for the duple pattern, the triple pattern, and the quadruple pattern. And we're going to count it while we do it. So just to kind of get the feeling for the rhythm. So we're going to start with a duple pattern, and what we're going to do is we're going to start with just down, up, down, up. And then we're going to start counting different ones, and you can follow my lead, and you'll probably pick onto it before we finish, hopefully. All right. So we're going to start with a duple pattern. Down, up, down, up, down, up. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Stop. All right, so that kind of shows you how it's the same motion, but that contains different notes sometimes. Quarter notes, eighth notes, 16ths, other combinations. So we're going to do the same thing now for the triple pattern and the quadruple pattern. And we're just going to go straight from one to the next, but it's going to be the same general thing that we just did. Right, so now the triple pattern. In the general triple pattern, I don't know if I spent as much time on this last week as maybe I should have, but it's down, out, up, down, out, up. And quadruple is down, in, out, up. All right, so starting with the triple pattern. Down, out, up. Down, out, up. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Stop. All right, and now quadruple time. Down, in, out, up. Down, in, out, up. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, stop. So, yeah, so we can see how same motion, but they can be counting differently. All right. So now I want to practice just going up and down the scale. So we're going to start in the key of C and just go every note, do up to do and back down again. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Do, mi, sol, do, sol, mi, do. All right, a little bit of review. And now that we're warmed up, we're going to get into a little bit of a more challenging exercise. Let's see if my clicker works here. I've had trouble with it before. Maybe it's not going to work for us. It was going to be really great, let me tell you. I don't think that's going to work. But the example was going to be from this book that I've been using. It's called The Rudiments of Sight Singing and Song Directing. I know you can't see it. It was going to be up on the slide where you could see it. But it's produced by R.J. Stevens, which is the same company that produced our old song books and hymnals. And basically all it is just a book full of advice for song leaders and practice. And really not just song leaders, but anyone who's wanting to practice the mechanics of singing. And I really recommend it if you're interested in practicing and learning more. And the exercise was going to be from that, but I guess we'll skip over that this evening. All right. So now we're going to actually get into talking about four-part harmony singing. So the first thing that I wanted to discuss is melody versus harmony. You probably heard us bring this term up some during this class, and so I want to talk a little bit about what that is. So if you think of a song like a body, the melody is the backbone. It's what guides and holds everything together. Without it, things are loose, things don't move, they don't work. The harmony is like the other parts of the body that when they're all working together can do things and accomplish things. So melody you can think of as like the foundation, and harmony is what we build on top of that. Typically, soprano, the high female voice, and what the song leader typically sings, is going to be singing the melody, the leads. They're going to be singing the part that's the main music of the song. For instance, if we were going to sing God is So Good, we wouldn't sing the soprano, or we wouldn't sing the bass or the tenor part, probably. I don't know, maybe you do. But usually we would sing God is so good. And that's the soprano part, which is also the melody of the song. All of the other parts, the tenor, bass, and alto, are what make up the harmony of the song. Now, it can be the case that some songs the soprano is not singing the melody, but typically for only a small portion of the song. An example, like we sang on Sunday, Our God He is Alive. At the beginning of the chorus, all the men start with, There is a God. That's actually the melody for a short time, and then it switches back to the soprano. But it can switch, but it's typically the soprano. And my advice for leaders is that as a leader, you should almost always be singing the melody, whether or not that is the soprano part. So I think if you're leading Our God He is Alive, it would be good to sing with the men at the beginning of the chorus, because that is what's beginning the chorus. Otherwise, you're counting on people out in the audience to carry the song. I will say the exception is some songs have an alto lead, and alto is either very low for a man or very high, so it doesn't quite work as well. I don't think I would normally recommend that, but it's kind of a judgment call. So I've mentioned the parts. We're going to talk about them a little bit more and just clarify them a bit. So it's soprano, alto, tenor, bass. Soprano is going to be the high female voice. So if you have a higher voice and you're a female, you're going to sing the soprano part. Alto is for the lower female voice. So if you have a lower voice and you're a female, alto part. And those are the two parts, like we've talked about before, that are going to be in the treble clef. If you have your songbook in C, that's the upper part of the music, above the words. And that's where the soprano and alto parts will be. And then for the men, it corresponds the same way. The tenor part is for higher men's voices, and the bass part is for lower men's voices. And the music for those two parts is below the words in the bass clef. And so what if you're in between? What if you have neither a high nor low voice? You're right in the middle. And I feel your pain, because I kind of feel like that's where I am, but it may vary from song to song what you sing. Some songs have higher soprano or tenor parts, and so if that's a stretch for you, then maybe you switch over. And that's the beauty of knowing how to sight sing, is that you have the ability to switch back and forth. You don't have to have it memorized. So now, and this might be dependent on having the slides. Look at it. Well, no, it's from the. I want to talk a little bit about chords. So if you want to take your songbook and turn to number 122. 122, God is so good. This has been our standard go-to when we're looking for examples of things in this class. And I just want to look at the very first set of notes there on God. So you'll see, if we remember our shapes, we've got a do for the soprano, we've got a sol for the alto. All right, we got manual help up there. Thank you. If you will advance a few more slides up. Yes. All right. So have examples. So when we think about chords, there are 7 different chords, different basic chords, I guess you could say. And they're numbered 1 through 7, pretty easy. And I don't want to go too in depth here, but basically chords are combinations of notes that are 3 apart. So a 1 chord means that you have a do, a mi, and a sol, separated by thirds. Another way of thinking about that is in a chord, all of the notes are going to be either on lines or spaces, and either 1 line or 1 space apart. And so the reason I have it pointed out there with do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, corresponding with each of the chords, is that each one of those notes is considered the root of that chord. So if you look at the 1 chord on the very left side of the screen, that is where do is the root. And so when I say root, what I mean is that is the bottom note of the chord. If you count up 3, do, re, mi, fa, sol. So you have do, mi, sol. And the root of a chord is kind of what holds the chord together. And so if you look at it, a chord is made of 3 notes, but we have 4 parts. We have soprano, alto, tenor, bass. And so typically in our songs, the root note of the chord will be sung twice by 2 different parts. And that just gives foundation to the chord. And I guess the reason I'm talking about this is what we're accomplishing by singing 4-part harmony. If we were not using 4-part harmony in our singing, say we were all singing the same part, we wouldn't have chords. We would just be singing 1 note. But chords are adding layers to that, and it's adding richness and texture and beauty to the singing that we do. If you think about it, the goal of someone who's writing music for a song is to think of the most beautiful way to move from 1 chord to the next. And people are very talented at doing that. But I'm not going to go any more into that. It's just that's what we are singing. We're singing chords, and there are 7 possible different ones. And you can see, if you count up, starting from the left, 1 chord, do is the root, 2 chord, re is the root, and so on, until finally you get to the 7 chord, where ti is the root, so you have a ti, re, fa, and then you get back to a 1 chord, where do is the root. So it just follows our normal scale. All right, you don't need to know that. That was more just, I was interested in that. All right, so what I do want to do now, though, that we've talked about that, is I want to demonstrate what that sounds like. So we're going to build some chords. So what we're going to do is we're going to practice with just the 1 chord, the chord where do is the root, and I'm going to have this side of the auditorium, which you really outnumber this side, so this side's really going to have to step up. I might have to enlist some help. But we're going to get some people to sing the do. Then we're going to get some people to add on the mi on top of that. And then we're going to get some people to add on the sol on top, just so we can see how the layering and how it all fits together. All right, so we're going to start with the do on this side. We're going to do it in the key of D. Do, and just hold that. Do, mi, sol. we go. And so that's what we're doing by singing four-part harmony. We're adding layers to our singing. And you can tell as it adds in, it all sort of clicks together. And really, four-part harmony was discovered through mathematics. If you want to read about it, it's very fascinating. But way back hundreds and hundreds of years ago, so there's math involved with this as well, if that's interesting to you. Maybe that drives you away, so forget I said it. And I think there's something to that where, um, I think we find that inspiring when we see throughout nature patterns, and the more we look, the more patterns and the more structure there is. And I think this is just another one of those things where you might think, oh, well, we're just vibrating our vocal cords, but mathematically, there's a reason it sounds good. And I think that suggests a designer. Okay, so we've worked on some of that. Now we're just going to practice this in actual songs that we sing. So you might still be turned to number 122, God is So Good. And we've already done a little bit of this, but what I want is we're going to sing through each of the four parts, and then we're going to do it all together once at the end. So at the beginning, we're just going to sight sing the notes by singing the shape note, whatever it is, for the soprano, and then we'll do the alto, the tenor, and the bass. And then the last time we'll do them all together. And the reason we're doing this is to show you the process for how you can go about learning a new song. Maybe there's a new song that you've never seen before, but you maybe like to try it. This is how you can go about doing this. You know the notes, you know the intervals, because you've been practicing so hard, and if you know the notes and you know the intervals, you can sing anything. And that's really the key to good sight singing and good congregational part singing. If you know the intervals, you can do it, whatever the song is. So we're just going to practice it a little bit here tonight. So number 122, God is So Good. And we're going to sing the shape notes of just the soprano part. Do, mi, re, re, fa, mi, so, fa, re, fa, mi, re, do. All right, now we're going to do that for the alto part. And I'm going to pitch it up a little bit because I can't sing that well. Do, sol, do, ti, re, do, te, la, do, ti, sol. So that one had a little accidental thrown in there, and that's a little tricky. It can be challenging. I think we covered that several classes ago, so just enough time for everyone to forget about it. But there is also a system for naming accidental notes, so flatted notes or sharp notes. This Rudiments book is a really good resource if you want to practice that. And if you're interested in that, let me know, and I can let you know where you can get that. All right, so we did the alto part. Now we're going to do the tenor part. Do, mi, so, mi, fa, so, mi. You were right, I was wrong. Good catch. All right. and the bass part. And I'm really going to pitch this up because I definitely can't sing that low. Do, 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 sol, 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 ti, do, 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 fa, la, le, sol, sol, do. Another accidental there. If you want to know the rule for that, if it's a flat, you add an A. So lay, te, re is already re, so re is ra. And then if you're going up to a sharp, you add an E sound. So do, di, re, re, mi, and so on. All right. So now we're going to put all of that together. So you can sing your own part, and we're going to sing the shape notes all together. Do, do, mi, re, 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 fa, mi, mi, so, fa, re, mi, re, do. All right. And that's how you sing a song. It can take some time, but the more time you spend practicing it, the easier it gets. Just the same with anything. I would imagine that whenever you started your job, it was very challenging at first, and you had no idea what you were doing, and everything was really hard. But then when you're there 10 years later, things are much easier. And it's the same way in anything that you do, and singing is no different. All right. Let's see. Yeah, let's turn to number 232. So we did that on a song that we're all very familiar with. And even if you didn't have the shape notes, you could probably just make the sounds because you know it. But I want to do it on a song that we're not as familiar with. Now, this song is not very difficult musically. It's just quarter notes and half notes and whole notes. But, I mean, it's new. And that can be challenging when you're doing a song that you never heard before. So we're going to get some more practice doing that tonight. Number 232, and we're just going to do the same exercise that we just did on God is So Good. We're going to go through each part. We're going to sing the shape notes and then put it all together at the end. Starting with the soprano part. And this is Glory Be to Jesus, number 232. Do, mi, re, do, ti, do, re, mi, so, fa, mi, re, re, do. All right, that was the soprano. Now we're going to do the alto part. Do, ti, la, si, la, do, ti, do, re, do, ti, do, ti, do. All right. Now for the tenor part. Do, mi, sol. So, mi, so, sol, sol, la, sol, mi. You might notice that this song, a lot of the notes are exactly the same for the parts all the way through. And so it can be kind of simple if you go through just singing the shape notes, but then, it gets harder when you're trying to look back and forth between the shape notes and the words and then, maybe we're moving faster. But again, the more time we spend practicing that, the more comfortable that you get with it. And then we'll see in the end how even a simple sounding part, when joined together with three other parts, is very beautiful. So now we're going to do the bass part, and then after that, we'll do all of them together. I am going to pitch this up again. Do, do, sol, sol, la, mi, la, la, sol, sol, do, mi, re, ti, do, sol, do, mi, fa, sol, do. So notice that that part had some trickier jumps in it. The other parts have been, maybe a do to a re to a ti, but that one had some bigger jumps. And again, that's what I'm going to keep saying is that's where practice really comes in handy. And that's the beauty of shape note singing, because a do to a fa is exactly the same sound no matter what key you're in. So if you kind of get in your head what these interval jumps sound like, sight singing gets much, much easier. All right, so we did all four parts, and now we're going to try to put it together and see how that sounds. So again, we're just going to be singing the shape notes of whatever part that you sing. Do, mi, re, do, ti, do, re, mi, sol, fa, mi, re, do. All right, good job. So that's learning a new song. And it can be slow at first, but it gets easier with more practice. So now I just want to talk about some general good practices while we're singing in the congregation. So how can I work to be a better singer? Just like the song leader has all these things going on, he needs to be thinking about selecting his songs, and he needs to have the right key and the right tempo. And on top of all that, he needs to have his heart in it, and and be engaging the congregation. So then the question is, what can I do as a member of the congregation who is participating in this? Because this is a unifying thing that we're all doing together. So what can I do to contribute? So a few things I would say. Watch the leader. The leader hopefully has spent a lot of time in thinking about how he's going to direct these songs to best draw out the meaning. And so if I'm not looking at him, um, I'm not really following. Now, of course, that's not to say, I don't know this song, I need to see the notes and everything. But at least having him in the corner of your eye so you can kind of see what he's doing, how he's leading. Because sometimes, maybe he'll want to hold a note or whatever the case may be. So we want to do the best we can to follow him. And some of these are more technical or more so than others, but breathing with the leader. You might notice at a lot of times at the beginning of this song, the leader will start. If we all breathe together, we can sing together. Now, of course, people have different lung capacities. Some people can hold for a really long time. Other people can get maybe a measure, and that's fine. Um, but breathing is a big key of singing because that's where our power comes from. You know, if I'm singing and I'm clenched up and I've got my shoulders drawn up, that's really going to put a strain on my throat and on my vocal cords. So breathing, getting our power from our diaphragm, and breathing with the leader can be really helpful in staying together. Yes. Yeah, I think the advice I've heard on that is you want to have a pickup breath. So what, maybe let's say it's a 4/4 song. And depending on, because we talked a little bit about sometimes the song will start on the downbeat, other times the song will start on the upbeat. So depending on wherever that is, we want to give the beat before the first note. So if the note is starting on the downbeat, I want to start on the upbeat, get everyone with me, and also you get a little bit of the feeling of how fast we're going to be going. I mean, if we're singing a faster song, Our God is Alive, I'm going to be, or maybe we're singing a slower song like When I Survey the Wondrous Cross. There's a difference there, and you can feel that. But yes, that is a good practice as a leader to give that preparatory beat so everyone can start with them. Sitting up. We're using our lungs when we're singing. If I'm slouched over and leaned over, I'm scrunching up my lungs and they're not getting their full capacity. So if we sit up, um, you know, maybe you can think like a little string out the top of your head. Um, that helps your lungs straighten out and helps them expand to their full capacity, and that's what we uncrossing legs. I mean, just kind of any general posture thing you can think of. And of course, this might all sound nitpicky and whatever, but this is just general advice. Um, maybe less for how emotionally engaged you are. I'm sure you could be emotionally engaged and not be doing any of these things correctly, but just to help your voice as you're singing. Um, but then, of course, more importantly, um, being mentally and emotionally engaged, just as a leader needs to be when he gets up here. Um, we all need to try to do that as well. Because and that's, I mean, at the end of the day, as much as you know, as a song leading trainer, I would hate to say it, but the singing will be all right, even if we're not doing everything technically right, as long as we're engaged in. And and that's what we really need to be focused on. All right, so we've got 5 minutes left. So I just want to talk about some helpful tips for if you would like to practice this more outside of this class. I'm giving you some resources and some ideas for how you might do that. So how do I become a better um, singer? One thing I would say, as with anything, doing it. Singing more frequently, whether that be in people's homes, whether that be by yourself. There are lots of resources out there, CDs, streaming platforms, um, and that's really the thing for myself. Um, as much as uh, as much as you might think that I came out the womb singing a tenor, I did not. It was a challenge for me picking up tenor. It was a struggle. I was not really getting it when I first started trying. But what I did do was I listened to a lot of CDs with whatever Florida College or whatever we had at the time, and I tried singing along with it. We would sing when we were on long car rides. We would bring the psalm books with us, and we would sing in the car. Um, driving by myself, I would have the songs on, and I would be singing along. I sang a lot, and I got better. It wasn't something that just happened. There was a lot of work that went into that, and that's not puffing myself up. That's how you get better, is you practice. So like I said, there's lots of CDs out there. Now, I mean, with iTunes and Spotify and whatever else, there's plenty of material on there. And if you're interested, just ask, and I can direct you to several really good recordings that can be helpful. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the class, the Rudiments book has some really good practice if you're wanting more practice with rhythm um, or the intervals or the scales or any of the things that we've gone through in this class. And something that I want us to consider at the end of this class is because I know that we think in our minds um, that person's a singer. They're a natural. I'm not. I don't like singing. I don't have a good singing voice. I don't enjoy it. And I get that because it is true that some people are more naturally drawn to it. And some people might have more natural ability than I do. But if we think about this in a broader context, if someone is more naturally drawn to service than I am, does that mean that I shouldn't serve? If someone is more drawn to Bible study than I am, does that mean that I shouldn't study my Bible? Of course not. And I would suggest in the same way, if someone is more naturally drawn to singing than I am, does that mean I'm free to not sing? And I would say no. At the very least, the command is to sing. How much work you put into that, I think, is up to you. But we need to be participating. We need to be singing. We talked about in the very first class of this series all of the benefits from singing, both physical, in terms of unity, in terms of glorifying God and worshiping Him. Singing is doing a lot, and we do not need to let that opportunity slip by us. Yes. Yeah, I certainly